This is a Ramana Maharshi clip, a talk by Ramana Maharshi with comments by Richard Clarke. This is a time to listen, reflect, and deeply meditate. I'm Richard Clarke. I'm reviewing and commenting on the book Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. Today is from Talk 13, the first part. Is a master necessary for realization? Mrs. Piggot asked first. Maharshi, the realization is the result of the master's grace more than teachings, lecture, meditation, etc. They are only secondary aids, whereas the former is the primary and the essential cause. Devotee, what are the obstacles which hinder realization of the self? Maharshi, they are habits of mind, vasanas. Devotee, how to overcome the mental habits, vasanas. Maharshi, by realizing the self. Devotee, that is a vicious circle. Maharshi, it is the ego which raises such difficulties, creating obstacles, and then suffers from the perplexity of apparent paradoxes. Find out who makes the inquiries, and the self will be found. This dialogue from Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi delves into the essence of spiritual realization, the role of a spiritual master, and the problem of tendencies. Mrs. Piggot initiates the discussion by asking whether a master is necessary for spiritual realization. Sri Ramana Maharshi responds by emphasizing that real realization is primarily a result of the Master's grace rather than teachings, lectures, or meditation. These external factors serve as secondary aids, whereas the Master's grace is the primary and essential cause. In other words, the guidance and blessings of a realized master are crucial, most important in the spiritual journey. In modern times, many seekers have realized the self through studying Ramana's teachings, meditating on his words, and inquiring into the self without ever meeting him physically. This suggests that while physical proximity to our guru can be beneficial, it may not be an absolute requirement for self-realization. The guru's grace can work through their teachings and the seeker's earnest practice. Guru's grace can even work through YouTube. Then Mrs. Piggot asks about the obstacles that hinder realization of the self. Ramana's response is succinct yet profound. He identifies these obstacles as habits of mind, or vasanas. Vasanas are deep-rooted mental tendencies, desires, and conditioning that keep you entangled in the cycle of birth and death. Mrs. Piggot then asks how to overcome these mental habits or vasanas. Maharshi's reply may seem paradoxical, but carries a profound truth. He suggests that overcoming these mental habits is achieved by realizing the self. This circular reasoning reflects the interconnected nature of the spiritual journey. Then the exchange between Mrs. Piggot and Sri Ramana touches on the ego's role in creating these difficulties. Ramana points out that it is the ego itself that raises these obstacles and subsequently experiences the perplexity of apparent paradoxes. The solution lies in self-inquiry, which involves investigating the source of these inquiries and the nature of the self, investigating the ego. This is a key point. Vasanas, tendencies, our mental habits, our internal conditionings are what stands in the way of self-realization. Spiritual practice and inquiry aim to dissolve these tendencies. Tendencies combine misidentification and the search for happiness. For example, we misidentify as a body. The body likes chocolate. Eating chocolate makes the body happy. There are two ways to approach dissolving the vasanas. The first is to inquire into the misidentification. Am I really a body? The other is to inquire into the source of happiness. Does happiness come from the chocolate or from within myself? My teacher spent several years dissolving tendency before his final realization, which no longer came and went, but was always. This dialogue highlights the central importance of a realized master's grace in the path to spiritual realization, and the need to recognize and dissolve tendencies. It emphasizes the necessity of self-inquiry to transcend the ego's obstacles and discover the true self. Sri Ramana Maharshi recommended self-inquiry for realizing your true nature and attaining spiritual enlightenment. So inquire, know yourself, and be always free and at peace. These videos help bring Ramana Maharshi's teachings into your direct experience. Subscribe now